intelligence, astrology, numerology, and we have the chance to discuss and make meaning of some really important um, phenomena in the way that we make meaning of the world. And so today's sermon is actually on the fact that we are whole. And what we are going to do, I'm just going to offer some. We've had the chance to, usually what we all do is we sit and we connect with spirit, we connect with our guides, and we kind of determine, what spirit has for us to share with all of you tonight. And when preparing for today, one of the things that we wanted to focus on, this thing of concept of wholeness, this is a continuation of some conversations and sermons that we've had previously in previous weeks. And please, just as a quick reminder, please make sure to post any prayer requests as well. For those of you who are joining through YouTube, please feel free to post any prayer requests, and we'll make sure to include those as well. And also here on TikTok. Welcome to everybody on TikTok and on YouTube as well. So when considering and thinking and channeling spirit with regard to us being whole, so very often we are conditioned from a young age to have benchmarks to hit. This concept of wholeness is something that we are kind of conditioned to think about literally from the time that we get here. And from a young age, we are often kind of taught and poured into, when you blank, like when you go to, whether or not a person decides to go to college, when a person gets to a certain age, when a person might choose to possibly, if they choose to either be partnered or married, or whatever kind of relationship that might look like, it's almost like as if we are not complete until we hit those benchmarks. And we're taught that, and we're conditioned to believe in this from a very, very young age. And it is really detrimental to us to be in this place of, from a young age, especially for everyone from any gender expression, whether it be a person is cisgendered, whether a person is trans, whether a person is gender nonconforming, gender fluid, identify as a woman or a man, I guess, again, whether cis or transgender. The thing is, for folks who have experienced any type of marginalization, especially for women, especially women and trans women and women of color, but women in general, we are often conditioned to view ourselves as incomplete and as a part of ourselves. And that when we get here, we are like a quarter of who we are meant to become. And then once we actually hit these benchmarks, then we might be able to celebrate in the fullness of our wholeness. And that is so unfair to us. And it's unfair to us to kind of start from the gate thinking of ourselves as a lesser version of who we are. And it's when channeling spirit and when connecting with the ancestors and guides, one of the things that just kept coming through is, what if we were conditioned from an early age, from the moment that we got here, what if we were conditioned to just see ourselves as whole? And see ourselves as perfectly whole, and that every and anything that we do beyond simply being is an addition, is something that that's something that is we are able to add on to as we grow into the fullness of who we are. So and I'll apologize in advance. So I have my coffee, and I am a coffee drinker, so forgive me if I drink as we speak. I hope you also have some good coffee or something with you as well. So this is the thing, and we have also in Root Survival, we talk about taking care of ourselves, and for many of us, being caffeinated is taking care of ourselves. So thank you for being with us as we as we do. But the thing is, so when we enter into these spaces, and spaces meaning relationships or projects or jobs or anything that might add to who we are and that might enhance who we are, um, sometimes, unfortunately, because we are conditioned to think of ourselves as lesser versions or as incomplete when walking into these opportunities, even if it's something that we are excited about and it's something that's in our life contract and someone who we are meant to be in community with or connection with, sometimes we run the risk of entering into these opportunities of relationships or jobs as viewing them as the missing pieces of ourselves. So we might land like the perfect job or a job that we are really excited about. But then when we enter into it, we might consider it as, oh, okay, if I don't do well, if I don't meet certain benchmarks, if I don't do X within this job, am I a complete version of myself? Also, God forbid, if we are offered these amazing opportunities and then something were to happen. What if, with the economy being what it is, God forbid, I hope this never happens to anybody, but we are offered a position, we're offered a job, and somehow funding falls through. Somehow something doesn't come through, and then that opportunity, unfortunately, is unable to be fully offered to us. But we are then put in the position of seeking another opportunity. If that particular opportunity that we have now tethered ourselves to as, okay, I will now become a better version of myself somehow falls through, then we run the risk of really devaluing ourselves and kind of putting ourselves back at almost like square one. And that's unfair. That's completely unfair to do that to ourselves. So and the same with relationships. So relationships are wonderful and they're beautiful and they can add so much to us, but very often, and especially for many of us actually, when it comes to relationships and potentially partnership or marriage, we are conditioned to think from a younger age as well that once we enter into these spaces, once we enter into these particular type of relationships, that we are then a more complete version of ourselves. That's when we are able to fully live, and we are then worthy of affirmation and love and care and respect. Right? There's certain unspoken social rewards that come from being in certain types of relationships. So it is like literally, a person could have a lot going for themselves and doing a lot of amazing, great things. But if that one aspect of a person's life in terms of partnership or relationships or marriage is not something that is necessarily meant to be a part of their lives, do they then devalue themselves and think of themselves as lesser versions of who they are? And that's really unfair. That's unfair to who we are, and it's unfair to it's really also unfair to the ancestors and to our guides who ensure and make sure that we are offered great opportunities. Like imagine think about like our ancestors who make sure that we are offered different wonderful opportunities, who make sure that we are on our life path and fulfilling our life contracts and doing amazing, great things, literally building legacies as we speak. And because that one aspect of our lives has not yet manifested, we then think of ourselves as lesser versions of ourselves. And that's really unfortunate. And we want to make sure and this is what kind of going back to this concept of gratitude, because when we are grateful for what we have, we then attract more of what is meant for us. But if our ancestors and our guides who are working overtime to make sure that we are fulfilling the work that we promised God that we would do before we got here, and we are feeling resentful and ungrateful for what we have, how then can they really fully pour more into us and give more to us in that way? Also, so when we enter into relationships or opportunities or jobs or projects, from that place of I am incomplete without this opportunity, but with this opportunity, I will now be more whole. What that does is we unfortunately might bring an energy of anxiety and needing the opportunity, when in fact, we actually might bring, and very likely do, bring so much more to the opportunity. Okay. So I saw a message that it's kind of hard to hear. So I'm going to hold like this. Thank you, Joe's daughter on TikTok, for saying that it's hard to hear me. So if this is better, please let me know. And we want to make sure that we're able to be fully audible here on TikTok as well. So when we enter into opportunities, this concept of wholeness, if we enter into opportunities from the spirit of, I am a lesser version of myself without this, but with it, I will now be more whole, and I will be a more complete version of myself because of this opportunity. What that does is we then bring the spirit of kind of desperation in a way to opportunities where we are actually valuable and we're needed, and we are meant to be in those spaces. And desperation, not as in we can't attract anything else, because of course we can, but that is the energy that we give off, and people can pick up on that. And sometimes it is, especially if we're offered a job or an opportunity, and the people who offer the opportunities to us, they see, the great potential in us, whether it be on paper or whether it be through meeting us through an interview, or however we might connect with people. And we then enter into those spaces completely, and we have that spirit of anxiety, or that spirit of, if this doesn't go a certain way for me, I will be kind of hurt, or I'll be super disappointed. Like that, it unfortunately does not allow for us to be fully present in the opportunities that we have. So when we enter into relationships, we're not fully present in the relationships. We are entering into them expecting to be filled in a way that they're not meant to. Like, we're meant to fill ourselves. We're meant to be, we literally are meant to enter into spaces with this sense of wholeness, because we are whole. We're perfectly whole when we enter into these spaces. And instead of enjoying where we are, we wonder, is this going to work out? And will I now be more worthy of this sense of wholeness, when in fact we had been whole from the beginning? And instead of, from the very beginning, from childhood, we should be conditioned to think of ourselves as perfectly whole. And the experiences that we have, the jobs that we have, the education that we might attain, the relationships that we enter into, they add to us. They expand who we are. They don't make who we are, because we are already whole fully when we get here. And so there is a term that we have discussed here in Roots Revival called personal sovereignty. And personal sovereignty is this concept of having ownership of oneself and taking full responsibility for who we are in every aspect. That means being fully sustaining, being able to give to ourselves everything that we need, and anything that we might receive from anyone else is a bonus. It's an add-on. They add to us and we add to them. And when thinking of personal sovereignty, there was an article that I read a few months back about personal sovereignty, and it basically equated a person to being an island. So, that phrase, no person is an island. Maybe so. So the thing is, with each person thinking of ourselves as a fully sustaining island or a fully sustaining ecosystem, what that means is we have everything imagine an island that has everything that it needs. It has its own agriculture, it has its own food, it has its own economy, it has its own exchange rate, everything that people living on that island might need is already there. So that is a way to kind of for us to think of ourselves in terms of having that personal sovereignty and being fully whole, us having all that we need within us in order to be as fully successful and as whole as possible. And what that does is not only does it allow for us to see the value in ourselves, but what it does is too, it allows for us to freely be in proximity to other people, to be in proximity. So imagine ourselves being an island. Imagine, an island that might be mobile, right? And that might float through the water. And your island could then be close in proximity to another island. So when you and another island are in close proximity, you might even touch, your islands might even touch. But simply because your islands touch does not mean that you, as an island, that your value increases or that your worth increases as a result of this proximity to another island. It just simply means that there's close connection and that you might be able to potentially share resources. So if, let's say, the exchange rate on one island might be, let's say, just for the sake of this example, let's put it in terms of US dollars, right? So let's say on one island, the equivalent of a US dollar might be $1.30. Another person's island, the US dollar might be the equivalent of $1.45. The thing is, no matter how much the exchange rate is on another island, it doesn't increase or decrease ours. And if, God forbid, if that other island were to ever get into a recession, potentially run into issues, their agriculture, they might experience a drought. Well, you as a fully sustaining island in and of yourself, what you're able to do then is share some of your resources. You might share some agriculture, some livestock. You might be able to share some tips as to how that particular ecosystem can become self-sustaining again. But it doesn't mean interrupting that, like, your island's ecosystem. It doesn't mean completely changing, completely shifting. It can mean compromising. It could mean inviting, but it doesn't mean completely breaking the whole structure that your island is based upon. So when considering it in this way, the power of personal sovereignty, it allows for us to take ownership of our behaviors, of our feelings, of our thoughts, and places really responsibility on ourselves to take care of who we are. And if something were to happen, and if we were to experience something that's not so great, we then take a responsibility in saying, what role did I play? How can I take care of myself? And what do I need moving forward? Also, when it comes to shadow work, so shadow work is an invaluable aspect and part of the process of becoming who we are, into the process of becoming into the fullness of who we are. And that shadow work allows for us to hold a mirror up to ourselves, see ourselves for who we are, and become the best versions of ourselves as well. And it allows for us to heal some of the traumas that we have gone through too. For many of us, there are so many of us who are healers, and being a healer is definitely not, it's an expansive term. And there are a lot of us who are engaged in healing work. There's just not one or two ways of doing it. The thing is, very often people who are called into healing work in our life contract, we sometimes experience some difficult circumstances. And those difficult circumstances are designed to allow for us to deepen our well of compassion, to be able to be there for folks who come to us, and for us to be more loving, compassionate versions of ourselves. The thing is, when we go through these experiences, we then, unfortunately, then have some traumas and some wounds that need healing. The thing is, when we experience those wounds and need that healing, it's important for us to do that shadow work so that we can continue to be the best versions of who we are. And it's also by kind of thinking of ourselves as being personally sovereign, having personal sovereignty, it allows for us to be tethered to God or the creator or higher power, however that might manifest, whether it be the goddess, however a higher power might manifest for you. or how that might, how a person might consider that higher power. But that higher power and our guides and our ancestors and ourselves, when we know that we are held by the universe and we are held by those who watch over us, it allows for us to enjoy the opportunities and the people in our lives and allow for them to come and go freely. And when I say come and go freely, it doesn't mean having opportunities or jobs or relationships or projects without boundaries, because boundaries are critically important. But having them in our lives does not indicate or dictate our fullness and our wholeness. It doesn't. And it kind of leads to that Maya Angelou quote, love liberates. Maya Angelou, that's like one of my favorite quotes. And we have spoken before about, with regard to numerology, myself being, and Christina also is connected to the number 5 as well. And my expression number in numerology being 5, 5 representing liberation and freedom. Any opportunity or anything that gives us that sense of freedom to be in the wholeness of who we are, that is love. That's love at its core. And personal sovereignty is our way of loving ourselves so that when opportunities come and present themselves to us, we are in the most full place that we can possibly be. So I happily now pass this over to my dear sister, Pastor Christina, Reverend Christina. I say pastor and reverend all the time. Forgive me. Reverend Christina, I pass it on to you.
Awesome. I love that. And yeah, I guess what I have to say is, that there is really 2 parts of ourselves. And one, I like to think of it as 2 parts anyway. One is the soul and one is the personality. And so when we're born, the soul comes through first. So you think about like a baby, right? And like when you first see a baby, there's not a ton of personality there. Like you see like it's crying or whatever. But when it first comes out, like you can kind of see that like there's a soul there. It's like a fresh soul. And they're very close to the other side. So it's like they're coming in and now they're going to have a personality. And they soon learn, just like you had said, that they lack, right? Because society tells them that they lack. And what we need to understand is the soul is whole and it has no lack. The personality, that has to do with the earth school. So that is always going to be a learning experience. And Gary Zukav, I think, calls it the earth school. So the soul came down to acquire lessons with the personality, but that does not mean that the soul is not whole. And if we could only keep these 2 things in our minds all the time, we could always go back to the soul. And the way to feel your soul, if you don't really realize that you have one, think about, go into like intense presence. And you can do it when you are laying in bed in the morning or right before you go to bed, but you can just like flood yourself with presence. You can even make it like white light if you want. And you can feel like every bit of your face, your head, every cell in your body. You can flood yourself with presence in your neck, your arms, your legs, everything in between. And you can feel the attention into your body, and you feel that there's a life force in there. Something's keeping you alive that's not you. Even if you forget about breathing or anything like that, like your body's going to do it for you. But there's something in there that's keeping that spark, that aliveness in you, and that is the soul. And the soul is connected to source. So when we feel the soul, so when you do that presence, you can actually merge with spirit and forget the personality, come out of the personality, because your soul doesn't have the body boundary like the personality does. So the soul you can actually visualize the body kind of not being there and the soul connecting to spirit. So That's why, you were kind of talking about other people and, they might add to you, but that doesn't make you better or anything like that. Well, that's the same thing for competition. If you think about it, your only competition is really yourself, because the soul is whole. You're coming from a place of wholeness and greatness, and the personality is just learning these skills to add on. Have you ever, if you meet a special needs person or a special needs child, you'll be very aware of their soul, because they may not be able to communicate as well. But like the soul, and I really believe that special needs children and special needs people are sort of there to teach us about the soul, because their personality is not like everybody else, because they came down for a special purpose to show us that, to make us not forget about the soul. And we do not take advantage of, because we go into situations and relationships feeling like we lack, we miss such great opportunities, because, and like you were saying, Danny, we can't make the most of the situation because we are not fully present and we're not feeling our soul. And if we can't feel our own soul, it's very hard to look at the soul of another. You're just looking with lack. So, they always say, namaste, like the soul in me honors the soul within you. Well, unless you recognize that soul within yourself, it's really difficult to see the soul in somebody else. Problems come when we start thinking we are the personality. So most people think they're just their personality, and they were gypped. They didn't get a good one. Because the personality will never be whole. It will always be imperfect, and it will always have lessons to learn. And that's really ego. It's just like Coach and Prada are never going to add to your worth. That's nothing to do with what you're worth. That might give you a moment of shine on social media. That might give you a moment of, of clout with your friends or something. But that has nothing to do with who you are. It's something that's going to be superficial and taken away at any moment. Somebody could just come up and steal that Prada purse. And so somebody takes it. Who are you now? Now you don't have a Prada purse. Who are you? So, because you're not the personality, you're the soul. And if we think that we are the personality, we're never going to believe that we're whole, and we're always going to live in lack. We're always going to be in ego. And, and it's such a shame, because we're not acknowledging our spiritual perfection, and that is the soul. So I think that, and you had touched on shadow work, and that's so important. I think, like people come in, and I know I was doing some shadow work this week. Somebody kind of came in and held a mirror up to me and showed me my reactions. And I had to think about that. It took me like a week to think about it. But, I came back and I was like, all right, my soul is whole, but my personality needs to learn some things. So, I was kind of thinking about that all week, and, what triggers my responses, and, that these are the lessons that we came to learn in the Earth School. And, but if we can remember that we're from a place of wholeness, and, think about like when women have babies, usually, that baby, they'll grab the babies and they'll be like, oh, you're so perfect, you're so wonderful. And then, and then the baby gets older, and then it's like, oh, you didn't do this, oh, you didn't do that. And then all of a sudden there's a complex. But it's almost like we recognize how perfect babies are when we see them, because people, like, I don't know, grandmas and aunts, they worship babies. And I think it's just because you can see that soul, you can see it, it's so fresh. So yeah, so that's what I have for You Are Whole.
Thank you so much, Christina. So much of what you said just resonated, especially when you said that if you can't see, like if you can't see the soul in yourself, you can't see the soul in others. And that just feels so connected to some. I know we've had conversations about this thing of love. Like if we, with in the process of loving ourselves, that is a process. But if we have not even begun that process of starting to love ourselves, how can we love others? It's just kind of impossible to do that. And with and in terms of expecting people to love us in a certain way, if someone has not gone into their own self-love journey, then it's unfair to them and to ourselves to expect um, for them to love us in certain ways. So I really appreciate you lifting that up. And
Yeah, I think that, like, to raising children, it's been like, I've had to like get spiritual books for them, like children's books, and read to them that, like, that they are whole. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of, I don't know, I think it's called like Fill a Bucket or something like that. But there's a children's book where, they tell you, to carry a bucket of, I don't know, happiness or something, and then like fill other people's buckets, but yours is never empty. And you can't steal out of somebody else's bucket. Like, you're just, it's really good. But I think that helped my kids kind of love themselves more. And it really does start with them watching you. If you hate yourself, they will hate themselves too, because they'll see that reflected. So you always have to really watch what you say in front of children, and what you expose them to as well, and let them feel that wholeness, especially when they're little, let them feel how whole they are. Boundaries, you mentioned boundaries are so important, especially when it comes to discipline and things like that. But that wholeness of the soul, they should be able to feel their souls, and that helps them, I think, I hope, with their self-love journey as they get older, so they don't have to kind of start from scratch like maybe you and I did.
oh, absolutely. And your kids, your girls, they are blessed to be able to have you be intentional about loving
Mhm.
themselves and being whole early on, you
Yeah,
know?
and you have to be intentional about it, because it's not something that's it's not something that's out there in society. It's actually, when I was growing up, if you loved yourself, you were conceited.
Right.
You were really looked down upon. Oh, she just loves herself so much, and it was really frowned upon. So it's the ability to do it in a humble way, where you don't think you're better than anybody else, but you know that you are equal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you lifting up the topic of parenthood, especially when it comes to wholeness, because part of the aspect of healing I have found has been in the realizing the humanity in my own parents and the in forgiving, like this concept of forgiveness of our parents, because it's interesting to see our parents through adult eyes as we get older. It's like in some respects. It's just how did they manage to raise me and cook dinner and pay bills and all of the adulting? Like, how in the world did they do it? Then in other ways, it was wow, they got some things really right. Like with my mom, she really stressed independence. Like that was important for her to be able to have time to yourself. It was really important. And she grew in how as she got older, she grew in how she viewed and understood her own relationship, like with my dad. And when she was younger, valuing it in a certain way, but then as she got older, realizing that she was whole, even with or without him. And I know that as she got a little bit older, how she even approached the relationship was different. So I appreciate you lifting that up.
I think too, like, we're so lucky because we live in the information age. So the
Mhm.
information is just there for the taking, and for you and I, we just love to learn. So we're like all over, everything like that. And we can develop ourselves at a rapid rate now. But if you think about it, when they were younger, that wasn't available to them. They didn't have a lot of answers. I know my mom went to the library a lot, but even still, it was a very slow process of learning about
Yeah.
yourself, learning to be better. My mom eventually did go to college and learn some stuff there, but um, I think that, we're so lucky that we're able to accelerate that learning where they didn't have that. So they had to handle things, they kind of had to rough it, really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So I do give them credit. They did the best with what they had at the time and what they knew how to do. But, my hope is that we do better because we have the information to do better. So we can
Yeah.
learn and then we can kind of project it out and people can listen. And like you were talking the other day too about, or sorry, earlier, the other day I was at the salon and I was talking to this girl and she was like 35 and she was going through a breakup and she was all distressed because she's not going to have children now because she's 35 and she wasted 4 years of her life with this guy. And oh my goodness, and I was like, okay, well, there's other ways to have kids.
Mhm.
And that you're not too late. I had a baby at 36, so you're good. And so what? And like it was society that was forcing her to think that there was an ideal something on the other side,
Yeah.
and it makes me sad, like in the information age and stuff, that we still believe that that's true. We still believe the grass is greener on the other side. So it's very sad. So hopefully shows like this and can get out there that you have to make the most of what you have in the present moment, and if you want to manifest things, sure, but it is important to know too, if it's not promised in the life contract, you know that's what you have to follow. You have to follow that life contract, and you're going to know because things are going to line up and things are going to feel right with that life contract. So I don't know, there was just some things I was thinking about while you were talking.
Yeah. This the power in sharing in stories, and the power especially of like parents sharing with children, and especially mothers sharing with daughters. And again, not to make this in terms of a gendered thing, but actually elders sharing with younger generations. Sometimes the elders and sometimes they just didn't want to talk about things. And it's like it was more dignified to not talk about certain issues and certain things and things that they may have struggled with. And they may have thought that they were protecting us when in fact we wanted to know these stories. It's how empowering is it for us to know that uh, our elders dealt with the same things that we are dealing with, and they had to try to make it. They may have handled it in a different way that we might now, but they still had dealt with it, and that's really empowering to know that we are not reinventing any wheel. Like that's an empowering thing for us to know too.
Yeah, and I think that like we have like because a lot of older people are like stuck in their ways, and they see it one way. But I think that we are kind of blessed with that too, because now we know that we have to be lifelong learners in order to have a successful life. Like we can't just stop learning at some point. You know what I mean? We can't just decide, okay, this is right, this is wrong, and there's no in between. And maybe it's an educator thing too. I don't know, but I know that there's more than one side of a story, and I know there's more than one way of looking at things. So, a challenge, as and I know I don't know if you were on the whole elderly show that Ivy did, but
Yeah.
we were talking about, Ivy and I were talking about how as we get older, we have to kind of remember that we can't just stop. There can't be like a roof and then that's the end of it. We have to keep learning, and we have to keep young people in our lives to show us the different perspectives and the different ways that problems are arising, and that how they change in the way that we need to deal with them and talk about them. Otherwise, we are severely limiting ourselves and our soul contracts as well.
Yeah. That is I loved Ivy's show on aging and spirituality. I loved her vulnerability and sharing what she struggles with, and I loved how she tied in like numerology and the astrology with how our lives in no way end at a certain age. In fact, they probably only like rev up at a certain time, you know?
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I feel way better than I've ever felt.
Yes. Yes. 42 feels good.
It
42.
does. It does, and
Yeah.
it gets better because you know what? You're like, wow, I wish I could have been like this at 20. I just feel so free, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Like if I had known when I was younger that I would feel this way right now, it's kind of like I would have relaxed a bit more. And
Yes.
the life path one in me wouldn't have tried to control and micromanage things as much as I did. I would have known that, oh, things are going to be fine. They're going to be okay, you know?
Yeah, it's liberating, really.
Yeah,
And it's like, oh, I finally get to be who I am. I don't have to, I'm not worried about what people think anymore. So it's nice.
exactly. And when thinking about the numbers as well, like and with this concept of wholeness, and I love how you um, Reverend Christina. I'm trying to use the terms properly. But with Reverend Christina, um, when you spoke about like the high and low polarity in
Mhm.
planets, and there's high and low polarity in the numbers as well. And we can all, depending upon whether a person's life path number, expression number, all of the placements, we can all find our way to wholeness with any number, any vibrational number. Specifically, though, with the numbers 1 and 7, those are numbers that really kind of almost have an energetic vibration that allows for and makes space for this concept of wholeness. With life path 1, it is, or the number 1, the number of like being the like steamrolling ahead, basically all forces steamrolling ahead, and being willing to accomplish a goal, whatever it might be, and kind of being like a trailblazer in a way. This thing of wholeness, it is, um, if there's a if there isn't necessarily a belief that one is whole already, that numeric energy allows for us to at least try to find how we're whole in with that number 1 energy. It's like I am as trying to be like as self-sustaining as possible, and because there is that sense of full force ahead, like moving forward at all, like basically I'm going to get this done. If there are potentially any feelings of feeling less than complete, that is that number, that numeric energy that allows us to get there. And then number 7 as well, because feeling whole is definitely connected to introspection and being able to have that sense of self. The number 7, anyone with sevens in their placement really need alone time and are always trying to find the meaning of life, and are really probably into the metaphysical aspects of life, and need alone time. You being a life path 7, and that is just so it's an essential part of that number 7 energy, being connected with oneself and being connected with one's soul. And to interrupt that time is also a form of disrespect.
Yeah, and that's the astrology too, really. It's like, sorry, I'm echoing.
I'll mute.
Yeah, and in like in astrology too, like you come to learn the lessons. And I earlier today I was in a meditation right before this show actually, and I was in the meditation and I was going into the quantum field, and the meditator who was instructing me was like, higher your vibration, feel the higher vibrations. And sometimes I forget about that, but when you open up your heart and you start feeling a higher vibration, it really does raise you. So feeling joy, feeling that freedom that you're talking about, feeling and just not really for any reason. You're just opening your heart and you're allowing in that vibration during a meditation. I have to say, like, it really, really helps the rest of your life. And I know it seems so stupid, but it's like taking 5 or 10 minutes just to do that, just to feel. And sometimes sometimes the energy is easier to feel good than others. So if I'm at work, I have my little card up with all my positive words on it, like, love and gratitude and freedom and all these like really positive words. And if it's a moment where I feel really good, I will just kind of stay in that moment and try to get the most of those high vibrations to make me feel whole and to make me feel good, and just to, because don't forget, like, if we're hiring our vibration, we're going to magnetize better to us. We're going to magnetize the higher vibrations to us. So I invite everybody to do that. Try to do that on a daily basis, because that will help you feel whole.
I love that, Christina. And I think I'm going to text you after our service today, just as a reminder of how to do that, because I would love to be able to incorporate that into my practice in the upcoming week.
Yeah, I'll have to send you, I think I have a picture of it, of the words. I'll have to send it to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, that is, I this I so appreciate Reverend Christina for sharing ways of us being able to raise our vibration and to attract to us what is important and how we can be the best versions of ourselves. Just as a reminder, if we could please have, if you have any prayer requests, please post them, and we would love to lift them up. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to post those as well. So if we could, let's see. Now, looking here, just kind of going through and looking at seeing some of our comments here. It looks like there are folks who really have resonated with what we have both shared. And Moose Burns is sharing, I catch myself all the time and pull myself out of ego and person. Oh, thank you, Destiny. So our wonderful producer, Destiny, is actually going to post for us some of the comments and questions. And Moose Burns sharing, I catch myself all the time and pull myself out of ego and personality. So Christina, thank you for lifting that up, because that is such like a great way of making sure that we stay in a good and balanced place. Mm-hmm. Excellent. And Nilove 716 says, yes, agreed. I'm 38. Also had to realize on my own that I'm whole, still working on it and getting out of that mindset, continual growth, like you say. Thank you so much, Nilove. This is, we ourselves, we're having the sermon today, but this is something that Christina and myself and Pastor Ivy are working on constantly in terms of becoming the best versions of ourselves. And it's a never-ending goal.
It's a full-time job.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. Excellent. Very good. Well, thank you so much, Destiny. She is been invaluable in helping us to prepare for today, and we thank her for being here with us. In terms of prayer requests, I don't believe that we have any prayer requests, but what we can do is, before we close out, we wanted to just share that Pastor Ivy is with us in spirit. She is shares her wonderful energy and her spirit with us, whether she is physically in service with us or not. She's always here with us. And Reverend Christina, do you have any final words that you'd like to share with regard to this particular topic?
Just to remember, like once a day, at least, go into the soul and feel the soul, go into the body, feel the body. it just so you know it's there, so you don't forget. And I know, like, you can go years and forget that you have a soul and live in that lack of that personality that experiences such lack. So if you could make it a practice just to go into the body, flood yourself with presence every day, it really will improve your life.
That is excellent, Christina. Thank you so much. I will I will end or just a quick final word on the fact that this concept of wholeness, though, as we just described, it is something we are continuously working on. If there are moments when we might feel less than whole, that is okay. Like, it's a constant process. And even we are doing everything within our power to be the best versions of ourselves. Life happens. We might experience some disappointment, some setbacks. Something might happen, and we might begin to feel a little bit less than our whole selves. But that's okay. We can continue going and keep going. And Reverend Christina, grateful for the chance to have this space to be able to process this with you tonight.
Me too. It's awesome as always.
Thank you. So before we close tonight, so since we don't have any formal prayer requests, what we'll do is if we could have a moment of prayer where we pray collectively for everyone who is here with us. And there are a couple of people like we can lift up in prayer too. So if we can invite in the Spirit of God. God, we ask that you pray for and bless everyone who is in attendance with us, that you bless Pastor Ivy, Reverend Christina, Destiny, our producer, and that we all collectively become and are the best versions of ourselves. I'd also like to lift up in prayer the family of Stephanie and Stella, who they are the mother and daughter who died in a fire early Valentine's Day morning earlier this week. They are beautiful. They are a beautiful family. I play volleyball with with Stephanie a few years back, and just really praying for Katie, Stephanie's sister, Stephanie's mother, Stephanie's husband, Kurt, and just pray that God be with them during their healing journey, and pray for the spirits of Stella and Stephanie. Okay. Well, as always, Reverend Christina, it is always a joy to be in space and service with you. You are a joy and a light, and I always learn something from you. So thank you so much for the space to be in the space with you tonight.
Thank you so much, Danny.
Thank you. And thank you, Destiny and Pastor Ivy, who's with us in spirit. And we look forward to seeing you next week. We hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your Sunday and a blessed week moving forward. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.